The Forum on the Family is one of the premier conferences held every year and hosted by Family First, with international and national speakers. And this year, it's a significant one. It's our 20th anniversary. Yes, despite attempts to deregister, muzzle and cancel us, we're still here, 20 years strong. The Forum on the Family brings together a national network of family-focused organisations, scholars, lobby groups, church leaders and community groups who are part of a growing movement to strengthen families, protect marriage, protect life and defend religious freedom. This year's conference will be held in Auckland City at the Victory Convention Centre on Friday evening the 11th of September and all day Saturday the 12th of September. As per last year, we're starting the conference with 3 important sessions and a time of networking on the Friday evening, and then a full program all day Saturday. And at this year's conference, once again, we have an amazing lineup of speakers from the US, Australia and New Zealand. I want to invite you to this year's Forum on the Family. It's a special one as we celebrate 20 years strong. It starts Friday night, 11th of September, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m, and then all day Saturday, 12th of September, 8:45 a.m. through to 5 p.m. Oh, and being a weekend, there will be no peak hour traffic to battle. It's the highlight of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Arrange to be there. Book your flights today. Gather your friends. If you're concerned for our culture, our country and our families, you may be saying, what can I do? Step 1, attend the Forum on the Family. Have your spine stiffened by some fabulous speakers who will encourage, equip and inspire you. Now, the last couple of years have been sellouts, so don't delay. Go to our website, forumonthefamily.nz, for all the information you need. Register today. Don't miss this important family conference. Go to forumonthefamily.nz. Register today.
Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to Solid Ground with me, Simon O'Connor here, part of the Family First community, which you are all part of. To first time viewers, welcome. We broadcast this live from Auckland. Solid Ground is where I talk the news of the day in the last 24, 36, 48 hours. The news of the day, the political, the cultural, the social, the ethical. From a solid ground, a good foundation of, we think, political thought, philosophical views, and of course, faith. To our regulars, lovely to have you along, and actually lovely to see your comments again. I'll explain a little bit, only a little bit, of why I've been away. Believe it or not, despite having been a public figure for many, many years, I do sort of remain quite a private person. But I will explain a little bit of why I've been away, and perhaps why over the coming days and weeks I don't feel as in myself or as animated as normal. I have to admit to you guys, even though this is a live show being viewed by thousands of people, I'm feeling still quite drawn at the moment. But before I get to that, as I say to everyone, welcome along. Lovely to have you here on Solid Ground. There are no shortage of topics for me to talk about because I basically missed all of last week. And while some of those news stories have moved on, some have not, and of course there's a whole lot of new ones. As the regulars in particular will know, this is a live show. And so if you have thoughts, comments, questions, insights, put them into the chat. And if you're on the Family First Facebook page or its YouTube channel, those comments will come live to me here in the studio. If you're on the likes of my Facebook page or LinkedIn, if you're seeing this on Instagram or Substack, wonderful to have you, and please do comment. I'll be able to see that afterwards. I'll be able to go in and have a look, as I often try to do, because we love the interaction. I think one of the big things for Solid Ground, or the likes of Daybreak, certainly our political playback program on a Thursday evening, it's a chance to actually see and hear what you are thinking. And just to note that, to see if I've still, even after a week or so, got my hand back in it and how this whole system works. Good morning to Karen, or a good rising to Muddy Waters from Invercargill. Darren, lovely to have you here. Good morning. It is nice to be back. From Southampton, Lynn, isn't that amazing? And good that you'll be back in time for the forum. Mike, good morning. Yes, I am on the mend, so I'll give you guys a little bit of an update. It's not completely secret or scandalous by any means. Samuel, good morning. We've got Rosie there in Taupo. Philippa, good morning and thank you. Jarena, lovely to have you along. Adrian, how do we do a show without you? Good morning. Nigel, look at some wonderful and familiar faces. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm seeing, mic levels are low, I'm told. So let's see if I can up that a little bit here. Good morning, Bernice. Lovely to see you again, if I could say it that way. And we've got Simply Green. Good morning. Good morning. And we've got Viv as well. Lovely to have you along. And others messaging in, as I say, if you're on Family First Facebook or YouTube channel, comments will come to me live here in the studio. Elsewhere, you are commenting. But I just don't see them immediately. This is a good segue. Very Bob. Yes, did I have the man flu? Well, it sort of started out that way. Look, long and short, guys, I have not been well, and I'm still recovering. We don't know what it is exactly. We may never know, and I'm actually under doctor's orders at the moment, and for drama's sake, I even ended up in the ED and have been in hospital the last few days. So what started over a week ago is the classic, headache and nausea. I'm not trying to make you guys feel a bit funny on a Tuesday morning, but yeah, headache, nausea, fevers. I just thought, it's a flu or a chill. I should have realised something was up, because you can do those tests, You remember those terrible rat tests? Well, they don't just test for COVID now. They can test for the likes of influenza and respiratory viruses. Well, nothing came up. But later last week, let's just say the pain, particularly the headaches and the fever, became majorly problematic. And then a few other unusual signs. So thank God for Rachel, because I would have just stayed in bed in my own self-pity and pain. She dragged me off to the emergency department, and they were amazing. You have to wait quite a while, I have to admit. You hear it in the headlines, and it's not as bad as 6 or 9 hours, but I was there for a good 3 or so hours in the bright light, which was one of the issues. I've learned the term photophobic. I was finding the light very difficult to deal with, but long and short, eventually was seen by the nurses and the doctors, and some treatments started. And they got quite worried. Long and short, guys, because I've been overseas, I've been in 2 locations where actually there are diseases, for want of a better word, that aren't particularly pleasant. Very rare here in New Zealand, and for a couple of reasons I'm actually at quite high risk of being exposed to them. So I've been bombarded with more antibiotics and antivirals than you can poke a stick at. And for the first time in my life, I've got to enjoy, if that's the right word, morphine, because the traditional drugs we were using weren't dealing with the pain. So I'm exceptionally grateful for Rachel getting me to the ED. And I have to say the medical staff have been just absolutely amazing. But as I somewhat joke now, I have never had so much blood drawn out of me. Twice daily blood tests, and then, as I say, infusions, IV drips. It's been quite a drama for me because I'm actually quite fit and healthy usually, and I've never really had to darken the door of a hospital, except like 20, 30 years ago when I was in Fiji. So it's all been quite the drama. But I got released yesterday. I'm back. I am, though I say, feeling a little bit weak, a little bit tired, and I am still on this drug regime now. And I have to admit, even here in public, it's taking a bit of a toll in different ways, including a little bit on my mind. But we're going to get better, and that's the main thing. So we're back. We're back, people, which is going to be a great bane to the left wing and the progressives and the like. So I'm looking forward to it. In fact, speaking of that, I'm actually down in Wellington. It must be tomorrow night. The Free Speech Union, and this is particularly if any of you are in Wellington, the Free Speech Union is currently running a series around the country called Good Faith Yarns. They've had the likes of Sir Ian Taylor, Rob Campbell, if you follow him. He's the former Chair of Health New Zealand, currently I think the Vice-Chancellor, or maybe just the Chancellor of AUT. Very outspoken. But myself and Todd Stevenson, he's the ACT MP, are sitting down in Parliament to discuss, and I think that's the important word to use. It's not a debate, it's to discuss euthanasia. Todd and the ACT Party are trying to predictably expand euthanasia. As you might expect, I'm there to say that this is a problem, but it's being facilitated by the Free Speech Union because what they want to demonstrate, and people attending will see, they will see a good faith yarn. They will see, I think, two political people, one obviously a current MP, myself former, discussing the topic in a way that we really need to do more so here in New Zealand. Because if you've been following the news, as I have somewhat from my hospital bed, things aren't going particularly well here in the political discourse. Comments, I think, from Winston Peters, for example, were racist. You don't go running about telling other MPs in the House to go back home. I think you can overcook these things, but it's still not needed. Tamitha Paul from the Greens talking about English as a bastard language when she herself is using language and may want to reflect actually on the Māori language and every language that seems to, if you will, have elements of that. But she would do well to reflect on herself. And then, of course, you have the unions putting guillotines up in Aotea Square. Sorry, not in Aotea Square, in the old QE2 Square down on the Britomart. Guillotines and mock cutting the heads off the likes of Winston Peters. I mean, that is beyond the pale and absolutely disgraceful. So we need more and better good faith yarns, if you will. That's what's happening this week. So let's hope my mind is completely back. And Bernice is noting that the discussion last week, the good faith yarn of the Free Speech Union in Tauranga, was really informative. And I think that's great to hear. That would have been Alistair Rees and Paul Moon. I wasn't able to attend them, even if I was well. But look, these have been very well received. So as I say, you're in Wellington. I think they might be asking $10 at the door to basically cover some of their costs. So anyway, go and see it. But as I say, I'm back on board, which is great, I think. So look, and I mentioned at the start, of course, as we were playing, we've got the Forum on the Family coming up. Please come along. It's going to be a fantastic event. Oh, and I should just quickly say on that, remember, if you have young people, there is a special rate, $99. I will say for the record, you cannot identify as a young person. We're not having the trans young at the forum. But look, if you do have young people in your family or those you want to encourage, please have them come along. There we go. Here's a good news story. I don't know if you picked this. Is from New Zealand. It was framed in the story as a warning by the doctors, but this is little baby Ada, ADA, and was born at 854 grams. You heard me say that right, 854 grams, born at 25 weeks, which in itself is remarkable. I think I shared, it must have been 2 weeks ago now, the Australian mother who had quadruplets, 4 identical babies. I think they were born at 24 weeks. And so one great news that little baby Ada has gone home with her mum and dad and her brother, has recovered well, because not only was born premature, but had issues, if I read the story correctly and understand the medical side correctly, Little babies at this age don't have their intestines, their little stomachs completely set up. They're not completely created yet, and so problems happen. And a doctor in Wellington, I believe, was able to intervene. And the whole point of this story, from the doctor's perspective, is saying actually every hospital, every major hospital, needs to be able to have not only a surgeon but the facilities to immediately help the child. His argument is, and if you accept it, and I suspect he's right, little children like this who need surgical interventions need them right now. And the problem in New Zealand at the moment, and you can understand how we've ended here, they'll put these little babies into a air evacuation and fly them. So if you were a little baby in Invercargill or Dunedin, Whangarei, you'd be put on a plane and flown to the likes of Wellington or Auckland. And the doctor was arguing in this news story that that's too long, that the child will die. They only have a very small window of time. So look, an important point to discuss and debate. Can we afford, can we find enough surgeons, paediatric surgeons, to be in every major hub for when events like this happen, which are relatively rare. But it's also a good news story that little baby Ada, born at 854 grams, guys, I mean, that's amazing, has, through medical care and love, survived. And I think that is wonderful. And you'll know too, as I pointed out with the quadruplets, to be 25 weeks. How many babies in little old New Zealand are aborted at this age and beyond, told we are by the lies of the pro-death cult that they are just a bunch of cells, which of course is a bunch of baloney. I know this will have been covered by Bob and others, and it's a little bit out of date, but I did still want to share it. This is Sophie Cunningham.
Biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that? I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
So you've probably seen some of this, certainly on social media. You haven't seen so much on mainstream media. They don't like this. But Sophie Cunningham is a top-class basketball player. She became somewhat famous through a pointing incident. And if you look up her name, you'll see all these memes of her busily pointing at another basketball player who was getting in her face. She's clearly a woman of strong principles and positions, or a young woman, amazing basketball player. But in recent days, she was asked around the whole trans inclusion side of things, and she's come out, like Riley Gaines and others, and said, well, actually, girls' sport is for girls. Girls' sport is not for boys and men who think they are women. And she rightly identifies, I think, that if you don't have they call it Title IX, which is what actually protects women's sport. If you allow men into women's sport, then women won't achieve. And look, of course, this has upset the left, it's upset the progressives, the trans activists, which again, and never forget this, guys, the heart of trans activism is men. Men who want to force their way into women's sports. And whether it's sports that Sophie's referencing, we can always come back, of course, to the Posey Parker situation here. I think of the trans protests that I've seen as I've attended various conferences. At the heart of it is men. And so we should never be surprised at the vitriol, the aggression, and ultimately the violence, because those, unfortunately, are more masculine traits. And you'll see all sorts of videos on the internet of basically deranged individuals yelling, screaming, dressing very weirdly. And I don't mean because they've trying to dress feminine. You're dealing with people with serious mental health issues. And it's sad, and it's a pity in my mind that we can't actually help these people, because a lot of society is trying to indulge them. Because as you'll know, there's enormous social capital at the moment around the transgender side of things. It's also why you see a lot of parents delighting in the fact that their child is trans. They're more than happy to actually harm their child, whether they are aware of this or not, conscious of it or not. Parents are willing to trans their child because they get social capital for it. But the great thing is people like Sophie Cunningham are standing up and saying, no, girls' sport is for girls and women's sport is for women. And so I just thought it was great that she's done that. You'll see the media who are reporting to beginning to kick in and attack her because, of course, as a very attractive, young, fit, active and successful sportswoman, she's meant to be on the inclusive side. But in fact, she's saying, well, no, it's not about inclusivity. It's about what's fair, right and just. So they're beginning to attack her now with the worst of sobriquets, that she may well be Trumpian. She might actually be more to the right. But I get the feeling she's going to hold her ground. She's not going to take this lying down, which is good to see. And I think it's all just part of that whole edifice cracking around the trans movement. The other thing which I thought was more funny was this, and you've probably seen this online, and I'm sorry if the sound's always a bit low, guys. I haven't been able to set things up probably as good as I should, but this was in England the other day.
We'll just send a couple of people over.
Yeah. She won't be doing that again in a hurry.
We'll just send a couple of people over.
Yeah. She won't be doing that again in a hurry.
So this is Nigel Farage. So he's the supposedly a controversial member of Parliament. Have you noticed, of course, in all the coverage, it's happening at the moment too with actually the migrant invasion of the Spanish area of Ceuta, or Ceuta, however you want to call it. Everyone who opposes or is challenging what's happening there, these tens of thousands of Moroccans storming across the border, far-right activists, far-right populists, yet anyone on the left, including the Spanish PM, who is a socialist, is never described that. They're just the Prime Minister or the Parliament or the government of the day. But anyway, Nigel Farage is supposedly this very controversial MP, and he was standing clearly on the street corner, I assume, waving signs or something, and that driver, she goes past, calls him a name, and then goes and ploughs her car. And yes, to use muddy waters, I think it is. I think it is. I think that is very, very funny. So yeah, and actually Simply Green's got it right too. I think this is around the Sophie Cunningham stuff. Yeah, some are being more treated as equal as others, and this is actually a major problem in New Zealand as well. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. Now, there was this as well. Again, this is last week, or was it a week prior? I mean, absolutely tragic, and I know many people have talked to it. Absolutely tragic, but entirely predictable, because unfortunately, Muslim lunatics or Islamic extremists, however you want to phrase it, in fact, there's many ways we could talk about this, have been ploughing cars into crowds for ages. And it's the tragic situation, I'm sure for many of you, as for me, when I woke up and I read of this attack, as soon as I heard about a car ploughing into a crowd, instantly went, I bet you this is an Islamic terrorist attack. Just as the attack on the Christmas markets was, just as, of course, was it 10 or so years ago, the driving of the truck into Nice in France, which killed 80 plus people. There's been another car ramming a couple of days ago. And of course, an hour or so later into this reporting in Berlin, the attack on the Pride Parade, you heard the guy came out with a knife. And again, this is all the MO of Islamic terrorism. And look, my reflection here is very, very simple. And it's not unique, because just about all the commentators, certainly who have a brain, have been pointing this out. We have a problem with Islamic terrorism. And now, not so much in New Zealand yet, but we do in the West have a problem. Whether it's in Germany, France, whether it's in the UK, wherever, we did not used to have this problem. People did not drive cars into crowds. People did not pull out knives and behead people or go for their necks. And we certainly have not had the level of anti-Semitism in our countries that we have seen since the influx of, unfortunately, Islamic groups who have imported their terrorism. And that's the fundamental problem here. We have a group of people, and not all people, let's not go down that route of trying to, if you will, stereotype everyone. But within, unfortunately, our Islamic immigration, we have imported people with basically issues from the Middle East primarily, which they are bringing here, a violence, a history, a religious history, a political history, which is unfortunate, and a hate of different groups, whether it's a hate of Jews or in this guy's case of our gay and lesbian community. The irony being, of course, those who got attacked, the leaders of the Pride Parade, are standing up. We don't want to be divided. Various reporters saying we have to watch out for the far right. A lot of the media, the New York Times was pilloried in particular about talking about an attack by a white car, as if somehow cars have agency and just drive themselves into crowds. What you saw was the usual and predictable response of the progressives, of the left wing, to basically try and ignore the fact that this is Islamic terrorism and to try to put the blame everywhere else. This was the problem of the right wing, of white Christian nationalists, of right-wing media. Somehow, we're to blame, not the Muslim who drove his car in like all the other Muslims before him and all the other literally tens of thousands of Islamic attacks. And we have to start talking about this, guys, because the obvious reasons for these attacks are right in front of us. And if we don't talk clearly about it, we will never be able to confront them. And we need to confront them, including here in New Zealand, because the threat, I'm sad to say, is rising. And it's not just on the attack front. Be careful here on the segue, but we have here in New Zealand, this is the head of the Islamic Federation. He's well known to me and many of you, spokesperson for the various Islamic groups here. Always is trying to put on an equal footing what they see as attacks on themselves versus attacks perpetrated from, sadly, within their community. They understandably, and he understandably leans into what happened in Canterbury, the god-awful attacks in Canterbury. Those should not be forgotten. Let's be very clear, violence is on all sides of the political spectrum. Violence does come across religious traditions. But what he and others try to do is use the Canterbury attacks as a shield for any criticism, any critique of whatever else is happening. So we must, should, and will always acknowledge what happened in Canterbury, but we can also and simultaneously look at what's happening around the world, and even close to home in Bondi, where again Islamic terrorists gunned down 15 Australians, 15 Jewish Australians, and say actually we have a problem here. But what he's pushing for, and many within the Islamic community and their friends on the progressive left, is new blasphemy laws. And particularly, I would say, blasphemy laws for Islam, that you will not be able to criticize, critique, raise questions. In fact, for them, this conversation right now would be deemed beyond the pale, would be blasphemy, would be upsetting their views, because I might be critiquing their religion. And they want to criminalize that, as they are trying to do around the world, because as they become more extreme, as we see more and more extremist Islamic violence in the West, because we're importing it, they also simultaneously want to shut down discussion. And so we need to fight back against this extremely hard, because actually it's exceptionally dangerous. I was in Parliament when we removed New Zealand's blasphemy laws in its entirety. And for some, particularly Christians, that may have been uncomfortable. But actually in a modern secular society, and as a Christian myself, I think we can stand the critique and the satire. In fact, if you're a Christian listening to this, you'll know yourself. New Zealand society, our media, and even our politicians mock Christianity mercilessly. And it's not pleasant, and it's in many ways it's not right. But we can sustain it because you go, okay, this is the society we live in. But unfortunately, we have groups within New Zealand who are desperate for blasphemy laws or hate speech laws. And as I say, if it's not the Islamic community wanting to protect themselves so that they cannot be critiqued, that we cannot actually use one of our best weapons in Western society, which is free speech, to go, you know what, actually we will mock, parody, satire, query, question your religion or your political beliefs. And it's the same goes for the left wing. Progressives are desperate. Trans activists are desperate for hate speech laws, so that they are beyond criticism. Well, look, I don't know about yourselves. I don't mind criticism. I don't mind the satire. You can parody my religion all you want. I don't always think it's the right thing to do, but people are welcome to. And I can sustain that because actually my belief is my belief. My political beliefs are what they are, and they can stand and fall both on my belief and on my reason. But that's not the case for a lot of these, which is unfortunate. And last thing I thought I'd touch on, because time has flown by, different story. This was coming in the news recently, and another problem that, I mean, everything sort of problem-based, but we need to be aware of how around the edges of our constitutional democratic system, things are being eroded, in this case by another, I would say, woke court. So this is New Zealand. A high court judge has come out and said the ban on gang patches is not fair and right because it's inconsistent with New Zealand's Bill of Rights, and has referred it back to Parliament, which means he's undermining the law and he's wasting Parliament's time. And I say he's wasting or she perhaps is wasting Parliament's time. And again, I was there. I was in the New Zealand Parliament when we passed this law. We are very aware. We were explicitly aware when we were passing the law that the gang patch ban did violate, if you will, or breach New Zealand's Bill of Rights. It was there in black and white. We discussed and debated it. And the New Zealand Parliament voted and said, we know that, but we're going to continue passing this law. And we did. And this woke judge has decided that despite what the Parliament passed in the law, despite all the debates written down in Parliament where the MPs acknowledged the law was inconsistent, has decided that he or she knows better than Parliament and is in effect trying to override the law. And that's against what they call comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y, comity. Parliament stays in its lane making the laws and doesn't critique, challenge and override the court's decisions, except through legislation. And the courts stay in their lane, which is they apply the law. They don't try to make the law. And that's why this judge has gone off the reservation, gone beyond where they're meant to be, and saying, oh, well, Parliament's got this wrong, have a look at it again. Because Parliament has had a look at this. Parliament was very clear about it. Either the judge was lazy and hasn't actually done the work, or has an agenda. As I say, Parliament breaches the New Zealand Bill of Rights all the time. Now, we can have a debate whether that's good or bad, but it's really important to understand New Zealand's Bill of Rights, or NZ-BORA, as we sometimes use as an acronym, is not the equivalent of the US Bill of Rights, for example. In the US, the Bill of Rights is sacrosanct. It's almost constitutional. In fact, if it's not constitutional, it acts like it. So it's a piece of law in America that trumps everything else. Here in New Zealand, our Bill of Rights, believe it or not, is not a super piece of law. It's not above every other piece of law. So when a Parliament is looking at a piece of legislation, we look at the Bill of Rights. But more often than not, then you'd be surprised, we are actually breaching the Bill of Rights to go, well, actually, okay, this could be seen as a discrimination to this group, or it could be a discrimination to that group. So whether it's in welfare, when the government decides to fund beneficiaries or not, or even around like voting ages. Yes, okay, the Bill of Rights says this, but the Parliament's going to do that. So I suppose a very long way of saying, firstly, New Zealand's Bill of Rights is not the same as the American Bill of Rights. It's not as powerful, not as strong. Secondly, many parliaments, doesn't matter if it's run by the left or the right, have broken, breached, created laws that are inconsistent with the Bill of Rights. It has been normal, often creates a lot of debates, but this is not the first time. Which brings me back to this woke judge. They know this. It's clear when we pass this piece of legislation, whether you like it or not, but it was clear what the Parliament intended. It's clear that the Parliament looked at all avenues associated with this and made its decision. But the judge thinks it knows better than Parliament and has sent the bill back. Again, for me, this is a judge stepping out of their lane yet again. The judges in recent years are getting a little bit too activist for my liking. That is not their place. They're not American judges. They're not here to rewrite laws. They're to apply it. And they would do well to remember that. Guys, I'm going to start wrapping it up there. Never forget, of course, Bob and I are always busy writing on Substack. In fact, Bob has 2 fantastic interviews in the last 24 hours. You can find them obviously on the Family First YouTube channel or on Substack on Facebook. He sat down with David Seymour and Winston Peters separately and has done interviews with them on recent topics. So please go and check them out. They are really, really good interviews. I've not written this week, but I did my Substack last week on the Odyssey. If you want to see my review, you're welcome to do so. Keep an eye out, as always, for Counterculture. It's not quite the new Family First program, but it's now the newest. So Samuel Bilton's a fantastic host there. Go and check out what he's doing. And of course on Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock, Bob and I will be back. I'm back. We'll be doing political playback. And, you know, my health holding and these new drugs not causing me more trouble than I'd hope, we're back onto the normal and full schedule of daybreaks and Solid Ground, which will be great. And I should mention, of course, Family Matters. I managed to actually do some recordings before I went to hospital. So Dr. Graham Ashenden has been my most recent. We're about to publish one from a Christy McVie. She is a former Australian police officer who now works to protect children, basically works against the sexual and child exploitation which is happening. It's a heavy listen, but a really important one. What Christy's got to say, particularly if you're a parent or a grandparent, is really important. Guys, as always, lovely to have you as part of the show. If you are on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe so you know when our shows are starting. If you're on Facebook or whatever, please like and follow us here at Family First. I'm going to head back now and get myself another cup of coffee. And I just end by saying thank you all for your support, your encouragement in terms of comments here, your prayers. So I'm back. I've got my health mainly back, and without sounding too dramatic. It'd be nice to actually know exactly what's going wrong. But look, I'm back. Lovely to be here. Lovely to have you here on Solid Ground this Tuesday morning.